The rain started just before 10, a thin, miserable drizzle that turned the empty street outside into a smear of neon and black. Closing time. I was just about to flip the sign to closed when the bell over the door chimed, a sound that usually meant one last straggler, one more table to clean. But tonight, it sounded different. Sharper, colder. 4 of them walked in. The first thing I noticed was how they moved, not quite in sync, but with a shared, unsettling rhythm, like puppets on tangled strings. A family, I assumed, 2 parents, 2 kids, but their smiles were too wide, stretching just a bit too far at the corners of their mouths, showing too much teeth. They said they were from out of town, just passing through. Their voices were low, almost whispers, but they seemed to echo in the empty dining room, a strange, layered quality I couldn't place. I seated them at a corner booth, the one with the cracked vinyl that nobody ever wants. They didn't seem to mind. I handed them the menus, my thumb still greasy from the last order of fries. "I'll be right back with some water," I said, trying to sound cheerful. As I walked away, I felt their eyes on my back. All of them. It felt less like a glance and more like a physical weight. Shaking it off, I filled a pitcher at the service station. "It's just exhaustion," I told myself. "Too many double shifts, not enough sleep. The brain plays tricks on you when you're running on fumes. I've seen teapots that looked like faces, and heard my name whispered by the humming freezer. This was just another ghost in the machine. When I returned with the water, they hadn't opened their menus. They were just sitting there, staring at the table, their hands perfectly still. "Ready to order, or do you need a few minutes?" I asked. The one who looked like the father looked up, but his head tilted at an angle that seemed unnatural. His smile widened again. "We'll have the special," he said. His voice was a low rumble, but underneath it, I could have sworn I heard a second higher-pitched sound like a distorted echo. "All 4 of you?" I asked, clicking my pen. The specials were heavy, braised lamb shank. It was a big meal, especially for the kids. The mother figure nodded, her eyes never leaving my face. "We have a hearty appetite," she said, and the 2 children giggled. It wasn't the sound of children's laughter. It was dry, brittle, like leaves skittering across pavement. A chill, completely unrelated to the storm outside, traced its way down my spine. Back in the kitchen, the familiar clatter of pans and the sizzle of the grill should have been comforting. Tonight it wasn't. The sounds felt muffled, distant, as if I were listening from underwater. I plated the 4 lamb shanks, arranging the roasted vegetables just so, drizzling the rich, dark gravy over the top. It was a beautiful plate. I was proud of it. My hands, however, had started to develop a slight tremor. I loaded the plates onto a large tray. As I pushed through the swinging doors back into the dining room, a strange scent hit me. It wasn't the food. It was musky, earthy, like wet soil, and something else. Something wild. The family was sniffing the air. Not subtly. Their heads were tilted back, nostrils flared, their movements jerky and animalistic. They weren't smelling the lamb. They were smelling me. My heart hammered against my ribs. I set the plates down, my movements stiff and clumsy. The father figure leaned forward, his face uncomfortably close to mine as I placed his dish on the table. He took a deep, loud sniff. "You seasoned it perfectly," he rasped, his eyes locking onto mine. A drop of sweat trickled down my temple. I hadn't even finished setting the table. The salt and pepper shakers were still in my apron. My hands were shaking so badly now that as I reached for the last plate, my fingers fumbled, and a fork slipped from the tray. It clattered onto the tiled floor, the sound ridiculously loud in the tense silence. And then it happened. Every single one of them, the man, the woman, the 2 children, snapped their heads toward the sound of the fallen fork, but not together. It was a cascade, one by one. A sickening, consecutive crack of vertebrae, each head turning with a speed that wasn't human. Their smiles were gone, replaced by a flat, predatory emptiness. A strangled laugh escaped my lips. Pure, unadulterated panic. "Whoops, clumsy me," I stammered, my voice cracking. I'll just go grab you some dessert menus. On the house." It was the stupidest thing I could have said, but my brain had short-circuited. All I knew was that I needed to get away from that table. I didn't wait for a reply. I bolted. I ran back to the kitchen, my feet slipping on the greasy floor, and slammed the heavy steel door shut behind me. I fumbled with the deadbolt, my trembling fingers barely able to work the lock. I leaned against the door, gasping for air, listening. Silence. For a full minute, there was nothing but the sound of my own ragged breathing and the drumming of the rain against the roof vents. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was having a psychotic break. Maybe they were just a weird family and I was losing my mind. Then I heard it. A soft scratching sound on the other side of the door. Not from a person's fingernails. It was sharper, like claws on metal. The scratching stopped and a voice drifted through the door. "Come back, Chef." It was the father's voice, but different. Deeper, more guttural. Then another voice joined in, higher, thinner. The mother's. "We're not finished." And then the children's voices giggling that awful dry rustle. "We're still hungry." My blood ran cold. I pushed myself away from the door, backing slowly into the center of the kitchen. The sounds grew. A low growl vibrated through the steel, a wet, slobbering noise. The handle of the door began to jiggle violently. The lock wasn't going to hold. I looked around frantically, searching for an escape. A weapon, a butcher knife, a heavy pan. What good would that do? The back door was across the room, but it was chained and padlocked. My keys were out front, in my jacket, hanging by the register. Then the jiggling stopped. A new sound began. A voice from right outside the kitchen door. A voice I knew all too well. "Come on out, Chef. It's time to close up." It was my voice. A perfect, chilling imitation of my own speech, my own tired inflection. I clamped my hands over my mouth to stifle a scream. "We promise it won't hurt for long," my own voice continued, followed by a chorus of those dry, skittering giggles. "We just want a taste." The door began to creak, not at the lock, but at the hinges. A deep groaning sound of metal bending under immense pressure. A dark, thin line appeared at the top of the doorframe as it started to buckle inward. The smell of wet earth and decay flooded the kitchen, thick and suffocating. I stood frozen in the middle of the floor, the heavy cleaver in my hand feeling as useless as a toy. The line in the door widened. I could see movement through the crack, something dark and shifting, not human-shaped. The groaning stopped. A sudden, terrifying silence fell again, broken only by the sizzle of the cooling grill. Then, a single, soft tap on my shoulder from behind. Something cold and rough touched the back of my neck. I hadn't heard a thing. Not a footstep, not a breath. A low whisper, a blend of all their voices at once, echoed right beside my ear, a sound that held the hunger of 1,000 empty nights. "They didn't need the food," it hissed. "They came for the cook." Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from the dark. Stay safe out there.